Hello, this is Darren Pulsipher, Chief Solution Architect of Public Sector at Intel, and welcome to Embracing Digital Transformation, where we investigate effective change leveraging people, process, and technology. On today's episode, we're going to talk about confidential computing in healthcare with special guest Nick Bhadange, Technology Specialist from AIBet.
Hey, Darren. Nice to chat with you on this podcast. It's been a while coming.
It has, yeah. We planned this several times, but there's always been, you're so busy right now.
Yes, I'm juggling multiple projects, so it's been a challenge getting this on the radar.
Well, I am so glad that you took some time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about this really cool technology with a very important use cases surrounding it.
That's right. This is a very keen area of interest of late, and I think we'll be able to chat about some very interesting things that we can do with it, especially for the healthcare sector and broadly to other sectors as well.
So let's dive right in. What is, why do we even need confidential computing? What's the whole? It sounds gimmicky to me.
It does sound gimmicky, right? So let's start with a bit of background and history. So the current computer infrastructure as we know it, it's built with a premium on sharing and openness, and the internet is free and data should be free. That's been a bit of a problem when it comes to security. So to address that, we have for a long time, implemented some pretty good solutions that do work well. We encrypt data when it's stored. We encrypt data when it's in transit. We all know that. But there are challenges despite that, which means that data, while it's still being read and analyzed and used, is still subject to being leaked, being scraped, and being attacked in various ways. So as more and more workloads start to run their infrastructure and their applications in the cloud, in virtual machines, in containers, on edge devices, on IoT devices, data is everywhere. Your applications are everywhere, and everybody's talking to everybody. So there's a big problem when it comes to how we address the data security. Just encrypting data and securing the transit is not enough. That's not to say that defense in depth is a bad idea, but we have to go a little bit above and beyond that. So the point I'm making is sensitive data remains vulnerable, whether it's financial, medical, location data, both from a visibility standpoint and a data integrity standpoint.
Now, especially with data in healthcare, there are so many rules and regulations, HIPAA regulations, and then there's even more. Every state seems to have something around medical as well.
That's right.
So that adds another layer of complexity in dealing with this type of data, right?
Right. So when we talk about confidential computing, we need to think about a few different factors. Key there is data integrity, data confidentiality, and your code integrity. And all of these are governed by different policies, and being able to leverage these concepts of confidential computing allows you the ability to share data amongst parties that inherently don't trust each other. That's a harsh way to put it, but
I like what you said there, because inherently they don't trust each other.
That's right.
Or maybe I don't want my cardiologist knowing what my primary care physician knows, and unless I sign that paper, they're not going to get that information, right? So there's also a third party, me, as the person that the healthcare records are about. I have a say in things too, right?
You should. And oftentimes, and especially in the US, this is very difficult. Most people don't even have access to all their healthcare data at all. It's scattered everywhere. Your doctor has it, your specialists, whoever you may be seeing, have it, labs and hospitals. And if you try to create a picture of your own health, I'd say it's next to impossible.
No, I agree. So confidential computing is supposed to break down some of those barriers for us, right?
It can help. It can help by, first of all, ensuring that whatever data you share, you can trust that it can be protected from a data integrity standpoint. That means it's not going to be modified by anybody. It can be confidential, which means you can tokenize it or encrypt it, whereby the data itself does not make any sense. However, it can still be used by computation. So if you want to do analytics on some data, you don't necessarily need to know the person's name or social security number or date of birth if it's not applicable to that computation. So if those portions of the data were uh, encrypted or tokenized in some form, they can be shared as long as you trust the other party, and the other party can use it for analytics. But at the same time, you can feel confident that whatever I'm sharing is not being leaked. And even if it's leaked, it's of no value to anybody.
Gotcha. So this is really interesting because when I think of confidential computing, we primarily think of just encrypting data in use, but it's more than just the encryption, protecting the data. It's also giving the ability to share the data with someone that you trust.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no real value, right?
Yes, and this is where things like attestation play a role, whereby you can you can have applications, basically prove who they are, prove their identity, and that attestation can be tied all the way down to the hardware level, to the trusted execution environments that the hardware provides. So that way, you can be sure that if you're sharing a piece of data with another application, the application itself is trustworthy. So it's not just the transport endpoint that you're trusting. You're trusting the application and how it's going to use your data as well.
All right. So with those tools in place, that could lead to some new ways of dealing with confidential data and doing like multi-party or federated learning, right? Multi-party
Right.
learning and
So
federated learning now.
right. So there are two basic approaches to this. You can have an application SDK, which means that the developer of the application can decide how to partition their code into trusted and untrusted components. The other approach is to have a runtime encryption system. And this can be built on top of a trusted execution environment. So this approach basically involves, minimizing the effort required to convert your current applications into something that can run in a trusted execution environment. So deploying full applications has its advantages because you can write your application and yet have it run in a manner that guarantees the security that's inherently provided by the trusted execution environment. So with a hardware-based trusted execution environment protecting your applications and data in use, it becomes very difficult for an unauthorized actor, even if they have physical access to the hardware or root access or the hypervisor, to gain access to the protected application and data. So the confidential computing paradigm aims to allow the removal of even the cloud provider from the trusted computing base. So that way, only the hardware and the protected application itself is within the attack boundary. So
Okay, so
that enables.
you mentioned cloud there, so this can run in the cloud, not just on
That is
specialized
correct.
machines, right?
Most cloud providers do provide confidential computing environments, which leverage the trusted execution environments uh, provided by the hardware. So it goes all the way down to the hardware, down to the chip. By virtue of offering these computing environments, the CSPs are, I think, leveraging the best of what the hardware can offer and the best possible security that you can get, that the end user or the owner has absolute control over. So that way, when you're dealing with multi-parties, each party can determine its policies. And you can have hierarchies of policies. For example, you may have federal policies, state policies, local or tribal policies. And each a provider of information can determine which policies apply and to whom.
Well, that's good too, because you've decentralized now the policies as well.
Correct. So when we talk about healthcare data, one often thinks that, hey, if I can pull all the information into this massive data lake, I can crunch it till the cows come home and provide all kinds of insights. But pulling data into a data lake is far easier said than done, because, like we talked about, just the amount of privacy settings and confidentiality settings and data sharing settings that are in place amongst different levels of the providers, nations, states, etc., makes it impossible. So how can we get deep insight into this collection of data that's scattered everywhere across multiple devices, geographical boundaries, political boundaries of various sorts, policy boundaries, and yet be able to do something that's simply not possible right now because everything is in silos, and the possibility of pulling all data together to try and make sense of it doesn't really help. So how can we work with multi-parties is a big challenge in the healthcare industry.
So that's where you and I actually worked together on this problem, didn't we?
That's right. We've been working on this for some time. We've had some great partners helping us along the way, and we've put together what I think is a brilliantly simple architecture, which allows for this kind of use across disparate environments, disparate types of data, disparate policies, and yet be able to perform centralized analyses on that.
Right. And I can't remember what we came up with, so many fancy names for this, but basically it's distributed confidential analytics.
Yes, you can call it distributed confidential analytics, distributed multi-party confidential computing. We'll come up with a cooler name.
We'll come up. Yeah, we'll let the marketing guys figure that out. Right?
Yes. As soon as I figure out how to monetize this, we can figure that out. We'll give it a cool name.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the use cases and the implementation, because we came up with a reference architecture using, of course, some of Intel's hardware technology, like SGX, for example. Right. That's the main crux that we built this around. But we couldn't do it ourselves. We had to do it with some third parties. So let's talk about, give us an example of one of the implementations that we've already rolled out on this.
So one implementation we rolled out was a small proof of concept. The idea being you have multiple parties. You have hospitals, clinicians, labs, universities, other research environments, each with their data, each with their trials that they may be running in a clinical environment, and or it may be medical data. And how can we try to analyze across this? So one use case was, can I find any correlation between people who take drug X and have condition Y, when drug X has nothing to do with the treatment that's currently offered for condition Y? So for example, a diabetes drug, does it have any pro or adverse effects on people who have cancer, for example? So normally these two sets of data would not be in the same place because they are handled by very different types of providers. Some may be labs, different specialists, hospitals, etc. So to be able to find something like that, if the providers were part of an ecosystem whereby they could determine at their endpoint what policies they want to apply to when it comes to sharing the data. So they may say, okay, I will share data about the patients who are currently in the clinical trial taking drug X, and we can tell as to, okay, what their condition was in terms of what's being treated, how they came into the system, and how many doses they've had, or however else they choose to measure it. So they can apply their own policies, and we can have a centralized application, which you can call a central research portal, which has these connections with these endpoints, and you can use third-party key management and attestation to verify each other's identities and credentials and authorizations. So that ways, uh, uh, all parties can trust each other. So that's one aspect of the trust. But what about the data itself? The data that's going to be pulled and queried and eventually transmitted, we need to protect that. So one good way of doing that is to uh, manage the data and the applications inside secure enclaves, which are basically a software abstraction on your trusted execution environment. And these encrypted enclaves, or well, not encrypted enclaves, these confidential computing environments that are provided via these enclaves can then ensure that your data is handled using the policies you set. So you may set that, hey, everyone's birthdays must be obfuscated, or social security numbers must be obfuscated, names must be obfuscated, and some other things may be completely tokenized, so they turn into complete garbage for the human reader, and share that data across back to the central portal when a query comes in. So a central portal can perform a query that spans multiple endpoints and pulls different types of data together into its runtime system and does an analysis on that. So rather than having to go and pull everything into a data lake and then do your analysis on this, you can do this in real time. So the advantage of this is you can really do some real world evidence-based research. You don't have to wait for data to be published or pushed out to,
or cleansed first, right? All those policies. Oh, I have to apply all my policies first before it gets pushed to the data lake and then on out. With this, it all happens dynamically and on the fly.
It's on the fly. It's practically real time, and this allows for tremendous insight. So let's take the pandemic, for example. If we had to wait every single day to get the data together and try to run complex analysis on it, it would be pretty hard. If we were to able to tap into live data across all these different systems, all over the country and the world for that matter, yet be able to share it securely, one could come up with some very unique insights that otherwise would not be possible.
Right. So we've already seen this in some POCs for clinician sites. But there's some other, and we did this with our partner Fortanix. We should mention Fortanix, right? They were
yes,
key.
They've been a great partner working with us on this. They have a tremendously valuable and useful product line which handles all these confidential computing environments, making it very easy for application owners, end users, and data source providers, whether they are your hospitals or labs or universities or researchers, to define their policies, their rules, and basically verify each other's identities and manage keys and trusts.
So they kind of provide that administrative part to set up these secure enclaves and to establish attestation between them, to almost create this, I hate to use the word hive, I'm going to use it, right? Kind of this trusted hive of endpoints that can now go crunch on their local data and give the results back up to the research portal. So they've got great technology that ties all this stuff together, which then in turn made us, geniuses for all the work that for all our architecture, because they already had software that did a lot of the things that we needed it to do to fit our architecture.
That's right. I mean, the concept of trusted execution environments has been around for some time. It's gone mainstream now that even the CSPs have embraced it, and having a platform that makes it easy to leverage makes it all the more powerful. And the use cases for this are fantastic. So in other use cases, it's not just the data that you want to secure. It may be the intellectual property associated with some specialized algorithms that you may have. So if those models, so in this use case that we are talking about is how do you automatically detect COVID from X-ray images? And there's data being shared, there's X-ray or radiological data of other sorts. There's patient data. And then there's also what may be a unique or proprietary algorithm that you want to use to do these analyses. Being able to protect all that, the enclaves offer that opportunity whereby you can do this in a manner that both the data and the application itself is secured from any prying eyes.
So it secures the data as well as the algorithm or the application as well. So no one else can see that application running.
Correct. I mean,
because it's in that
even if you have
enclave.
root access to the system, it is not visible to you.
That's pretty cool. So I could potentially push down like a CNN, right? A neural network. I could push it down into these end nodes to do analysis. And those end nodes are sitting in someone else's site and they can't see what I'm actually running in that enclave.
That's correct. As
That's
long as
pretty
they have,
slick.
as long as they have, agreed to let you in, as long as the trust exists and
Right.
it's been set up a priori. That's the way to go, and that allows you to push out new and improved algorithms all the time, and you can push it out to the broad world, so to speak.
Well, and doesn't the secure enclave also protect the other machines in your network potentially too? Because what if someone pushed something nefarious out onto these end nodes? It would be in its secure enclave, almost quarantined, right?
Correct. Anything in a secure enclave has to be properly attested. The key management system would verify that anything that's being exchanged with it is from who they claim to be and going to the right application. So it's the identity, it's the application, and the data that are all protected, that are all securely attested.
Well, and I also I can limit that secure enclave to what it can access outside of the secure enclave itself, correct?
Yes, you can choose exactly where it's going to connect, which data sources it's going to talk to,
So
get data from.
I could really lock down an enclave and isolate it from everything else in my system as well. Both no one can get in and it can't really get out too, right?
Right, and the enclaves provide all sorts of connection APIs that allow you to talk to files and databases and APIs. So that way, you could have an enclave that's doing some analysis on data that's pulled from an EHR system that's hosted by, let's say Cerner or Epic in their own cloud, but yet be able to ensure that whatever data that's available to the application that's doing this query, it's completely secure and it's invisible to the outside world.
That's pretty cool. So let's talk. There's another use case that we've already seen, and it's kind of like a mandate, right? On electronic health records, which you and I both know electronic health records are a mess.
They are.
They are a complete.
They are a big mess, and so there's a use case that's of great interest to us, and it may be a good model for us to follow. Those of us in the U.S. This comes from the German government, and the government actually, in their bid to industry, actually mandated that they have to deploy their applications in a trusted execution environment. And the use case that has recently been launched in January of 2021 and there's more coming over the next few months, is that the end user through an application determines, like the end user being the patient, or the average citizen, determines exactly what pieces of data are available and to whom. They can specify, I need my blood pressure reports to go to my primary care physician, my cardiologist, and perhaps another pulmonary specialist that I may be seeing. So the level of granularity in terms of what is available to the end user is tremendous here. And it's not just that. All the data that's being collected and shared from the different systems is all running inside secure enclaves. So that way it's completely secure from the outside world. Even if anybody does get access to the data itself, it is completely meaningless to anybody else, and only the approved doctors in this case would be the ones who are able to see it.
So they've been able to then go to the granularity at the electronic record level, because we can do that here in the US with paper, right? Everyone signs that HIPAA thing. I only want these people seeing this data, but it's on paper and no way to enforce it.
There's no way to enforce it. There's no way for you and I to know if any data
how
has
many
been
of those
shared
have I signed
inadvertently or not.
Yeah, exactly. And how many of those have I signed and I don't know who I signed them to, or
how many of us even bother reading it these days?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a complicated mess, and we need controls that are easily understandable and easily enforceable.
And these trusted execution environments are the first step in that direction, it sounds like.
It definitely looks like it. This is a very positive implementation of trusted execution environments. It's very large scale. It will affect all citizens in Germany, so roughly 75 million or so. And then it's also going to go into the pharmaceutical
so all those
sector.
Prescriptions.
So it's going to handle your prescriptions as well.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, you can find all this information on our blog. There's white papers to all these use cases, and even a high-level white paper on the architecture that this confidential, collaborative, distributive analytics. Thanks for listening to Embracing Digital Transformation today. If you liked our episode, go ahead and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast or video streaming site. You can also find out more on embracingdigital.com. Until next time, keep moving forward and do something wonderful.